Good morning, everybody. My name is Jacob Shreve. I appreciate your time. I apologize. I wanted to be able to do this in person, but my flights changed at the last minute. I'm going back to the mainland to pick up my family. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a new hematology oncologist at Adventist Health. I just started a couple of weeks ago. I come in from Mayo Clinic, and I have a strong background in computer science and artificial intelligence. I met with Dr. Toshio Awase and tried to understand what we could do about clinical trial accrual, and it kind of dovetails into some of my past research experience, which is why I'd like to present a short presentation for you today. I created a solution powered by Google's Gemini 1.5 Pro large language model. When I'm looking at different reasons that clinical trial accrual is difficult, across the country, the biggest problem that I see is that it's obviously time consuming to go through all the trials, for a given patient. And then it's also very expensive to use a third-party solution that uses proprietary software. They usually want to integrate into the EMR in some way, and it's just costly and time consuming. However, there are very excellent strategies that you can use using some open source tools with minimal cost. And so that's what I've done here. Rather than just describe it, I want to show it to you. So please allow me to share my screen. This is going to be the website I made. This is live right now, just for a test server only. If you go to hawaiitrials.org, you'll see this. I'm hosting this on Google Cloud. Basically, you put in a patient's note here. I have sample text, and you can see this is just like a generic thing I wrote: Jane Doe, 72-year-old with breast cancer. Just a very typical note. And then you press analyze. And what this does is it takes the note and it breaks it down into certain pieces, and it sends it to Google Cloud, to the Gemini 1.5 Pro server. All of this is HTTPS, it's secure shell. On the back end, Google is HIPAA compliant. It's perfectly safe for all protected health information, and I have all of the documentation to back that up. We actually use this quite a bit at Mayo Clinic, using Google Cloud to process patient data. So this is going to take about 10 seconds or so, and during that 10 seconds, it's evaluating the patient for many different clinical trials. What you get at the end is something that looks like this. And so this is a reproduction of the clinical trial formatting that I received from Dr. Awase earlier in the month. And so you can see this patient is likely for this clinical trial. You have the trial's identifier by the NCT code, the treatment type, the official title for the trial, and so on. Important is the eligibility criteria. Now, in bold, these are the eligibility criteria that are provided to me for each trial. So the stage 1 to stage 3 breast cancer diagnosed within the last 2 years. You break that down to easier questions so that the large language model can understand and give you good answers. And so it says, does the patient have breast cancer, either stage 1, 2, or 3? The large language model says, yes, it does. And then it gives evidence from the note, and it explains exactly why it knows that the patient actually has breast cancer, stage 1, 2, or 3. Can they lay flat on their back for 10 minutes? And the question that was asked to the LLM is it likely they can lay flat for 10 minutes? And then they say, yes, it's likely. And they say they go by the ECOG score is 0 and those kind of things. So it is able to match. This patient, for a different trial, eligibility criteria was age 45 to 74 and scheduled for a mammogram. That's kind of difficult to interpret. So it says, is the patient age 45 to 74? The answer is yes. They give evidence of the age. Is there specific evidence that the patient is scheduled for a mammogram? It's unknown. They're presenting to establish care. They don't talk about mammograms. But let's say I'm the physician, I have domain knowledge. I say, well, I will schedule that patient for a mammogram. I can change this to yes. And so all these are modifiable, right? So if I understand that, if I'm looking at a different trial here's towards this bottom, maybe the LLM was wrong, or maybe I know something about the patient that's unavailable to the rest of the model. I can actually change this. And therefore we can change the categorization from a likely to a yes. I can say false, or I can say that, all these are unknown. So basically this is a way to have the machine pre-screen a patient for all the clinical trials. And then you can use your own information that you have available to you to then modify and to correct anything. I only have 7 or 8 trials here as loaded as part of this test server. But it's doing an excellent job matching for these 7 or 8 trials. I do quite a bit of quality checking, and right now the solution is very accurate. So what can you do after you have this done? Well, you can always create a printed report. And so you can see we can create this report that could then be printed and associated with the patient's chart, or brought into an office visit or something like that. So let me just demonstrate again. We're just going to reset the server. And again, so right here, there's a place that you can drop in the sample text. So one question would be, I'll just have this analyze again. How do we get the clinical trials into the software? What do we do so that the software is able to see the trials? You don't want something like this dependent on one person, like myself, as the only source of the ability to input these trials. So I created a companion website for a trialist or a trial designer or a trial coordinator to assist with that process. So here we see what that looks like. This has all the fields for the trial. So this is the NCT code, and you could say, okay, it's NCT something, something. The trial name. So here you can enter, the trial for adjuvant, something, something, something. Keywords that you want to add to the trial, maybe it's breast cancer, survivalship or something. The category, we might say this is a adjuvant, therapy trial or something. The cancer type could be breast. The treatment could be testing drug X, whatever this might be. The official title, put the official title here, the contact person, and so on. Okay, these are just the things that were found, in that top part of the table. But the important part is the eligibility criteria. So I want to go back to this one. This was the eligibility criteria listed on the trials. And you can see that we're going to break it down. Stage 1 to 3 breast cancer diagnosed within the last 3 years or last 2 years. How can you simplify that? You can say, does the patient have breast cancer? And you can say, was their cancer diagnosed within the last 2 years? You just take the eligibility criteria and you break it down to a series of smaller questions, and that dramatically increases the accuracy of the entire pipeline. And then you say generate JSON. And what this is this is now that clinical trial, all the information with those eligibility criteria, and it's listed in a computer readable way that can then be directly imported to that website and added to the list of trials. So anybody can add a trial, with appropriate approvals and all those kind of things, but it means that it's decentralized, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that myself, as a person who's also a computer programmer and a physician, I don't have to be the person doing this. This can be done by anybody who has intimate knowledge of the trial. So in that way, I think this is a powerful solution. I've been collaborating with Google for the last 2 or 3 weeks now, just to ensure that everything is HIPAA compliant, perfectly airtight for PHI and those kind of things. My intention is just to increase accrual. I feel that I want to be able to contribute to the island in any way that I can. Obviously, I'm new here. I'd like to be able to establish myself as a leader in artificial intelligence in cancer care in Hawaii. And I'd like to be able to contribute in any way that might be useful. Toward that end, I would like to create this hawaiitrials.org into a pilot program or an investigator-initiated trial itself. I would like to be able to put all the different clinical trials on here and then do a pilot study, a prospective study to understand, is it actually helping accrue people? I'd also like to turn this into a nonprofit company so that it can be first used in Hawaii, and then if useful, any other resource poor areas across the country that would benefit from an open source free alternative for clinical trial accrual. So thank you very much. I'm sorry I'm not here today. I would love to talk with anybody who there is questions, and I'll be available as soon as I'm back to the beautiful island of Hawaii. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.